Welcome back, everybody. A sheriff in Wisconsin is encouraging his citizens to get in the game, learn how to use a gun. The Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke Jr. says you can't count on law enforcement officials because of cutbacks. So there's this new radio ad, and some people find it very surprising. Here's a little part of it.
With officers laid off and furloughed, simply calling 911 and waiting is no longer your best option. You could beg for mercy from a violent criminal, hide under the bed, or you can fight back. But are you prepared? Consider taking a certified safety course and handling a firearm so you can defend yourself until we get there.
Wow. Wow. Sheriff Clarke joins us now. He's in Monterey, California, where he's attending a conference on Homeland Security. It's nice to have you with us, Sheriff. Appreciate your time. What's the goal in this? Because it's kind of scary. Is it to scare people? Is it to get everybody to run out and buy a gun?
Well, good morning, first of all. The only thing that's scary is the criminal element, and I think the people in Milwaukee County understand that. There are certain situations, and I think most people get that, where 911 is going to be of no use. For instance, once the wolf is at the door, once the intruder is inside your home, once you're on the street and someone sticks a gun in your face to take your car or your wallet, you don't have the option of calling 911. And in those situations, there are certain things that you can do to protect yourself. It's a public safety message, and I'm just here to let the people know, give them the information as to what's going on, and to give them options, if you will, as to how to defend themselves in those situations.
Give me some details. Give me some details about the area that you're in charge of. I mean, you talked about furlough. How many officers do you have, deputies do you have? How many have been furloughed? How much crime have you had?
I have about 350 sworn law enforcement officers. And last year, with the budget cut, I had to lay off 42 people. The City of Milwaukee Police Department that I work with, in conjunction with them anyway, for public safety in Milwaukee County, this year is furloughing 1,500 officers 3 days each. That's 4,500 fewer officer days that will be spent on the street. At the same time, the crime continues to go on. There's a burglary and robbery problem that's been going on for a long time in the city of Milwaukee, and the calls for service continue to get in. So at some point, there is a breaking point. So there are certain situations, and I talked about inside your home or if you're on the street. And you know, this is something that I've been doing for 35 years in terms of educating people as to what they can do in certain situations. And I said at the end of that ad, we're partners now. You know, we're always out there telling the public we want to be your partner, we want to work with you, we want you to work with us, but we never define a role for them, and that's what this does.
But you know, I know so many sheriffs and law enforcement officials who say one of the things that is most risky for their deputies and for their officers is civilians who are armed and not necessarily well trained, certainly as much as they are, to be using a weapon. Here's what the police chief in Chicago said. You put more guns on the street, expect more shootings. I don't care if they're licensed, legal firearms. People who are not highly trained, putting guns in their hands is a recipe for disaster. And he's not the only one I've heard that from. There are a lot of people in law enforcement who feel like that's actually bad for the officers to have civilians who are armed.
Well, that's fine. That's his opinion. He's in charge of the city of Chicago as it relates to public safety. I trust law-abiding citizens. The people that scare me, Soledad, are the criminal elements, the ones who have demonstrated time and time again that they will use a firearm to commit a crime. Those are the people that law enforcement officers fear most. So that's why I mentioned in this ad, if you're going to arm yourself, if you're going to own a firearm, and the firearms are out there anyway. But the last estimate I've heard, 300 million guns in circulation in the United States and 115 million gun owners in the United States. So we're not putting any more guns on the street. The guns are already there. My message is for law-abiding citizens in certain situations not to go out and enforce the law. I said inside your home, when the wolf's at the door and the intruder comes in, or someone sticks a gun in your face when you're on the street to take your property, there are certain things that you can and should do to protect yourself. It's always been my belief that personal safety is an individual responsibility.
Sheriff David Clarke Jr. is the Milwaukee County Sheriff. Nice to have you with us, sir. We appreciate your time. I find that fascinating.
Well,
Be interesting. You bet. Our pleasure.
Like PSA
it's
for not cutting law enforcement. If you have your drug, even in what he's saying, it's mostly because of cutbacks in actual, police being able to do the job, and now you're deferring that responsibility to people who are not necessarily trained as much. And even if you go out and get trained to how to use it, using it in a real situation becomes a very different thing, and it has a cost associated because gun violence has its own cost, and it's extraordinarily high.
It's a serious issue, but it's a very dramatic ad. I thought it was like an ad for the Last Stand too, in terms of the way he was talking about things and the drama in his voice. It seemed very, very dramatic.
Later this week, Anderson's going to be talking about gun control, talking to both sides in the debate. Guns Under Fire, and AC 360 Town Hall Special. That's on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Still ahead on Starting Point,